Okay, so the very last thing we want to do is actually finish off the decoration on the cake and pop our roses on. So I'm going to start with a number 12, just that's the piping tip that we started off right at the very beginning when we did the dam on the cake. And I'm going to create a bit of a base for the flowers. Now, looking at the top of my cake, this is the area that doesn't look at its best. So I'm going to use that side and I'm going to decorate in a kind of a C shape. So we want to create a base, which we're going to do by just piping some teardrop shapes, fat ones in the center, and then these are going to taper out. And this is just a base for everything to sit on. If I turn this round now as well, we can do the same on the opposite side, trailing down, just reset. So I'm just going to do a couple here as well, just to give it a little bit of height to raise the design on. As you can see, it doesn't have to be very pretty. Okay, so then what I want to do is transfer my roses on. So I've got a pair of scissors. You can use a normal pair of scissors, but this is actually a plastic pair of scissors. They come apart in the middle as well, but these are by Wilton, and they are the scissors have actually got just an angle to them, which helps you transfer. But I do recommend you have your roses set in the freezer just for 5 minutes or so before you try and transport them, because they're actually really difficult to lift up when they're wet or soft. This one's quite soft. So what I would do is go in with my scissors quite low down, right by the greaseproof paper, and then we can just transfer that on. And if you use a palette knife to help you just release that off the scissors, that should hold in place. Okay, so that's my first rose. Then I've got a bud here which I want to pop in. So again, be careful, if they're really soft, it's going to be quite tricky. So we're just going to turn that at an angle and drop that onto one side. And then we can do the same with the other bud. I'm not chopping off the cone, I'm keeping that so I've got some height. This one I'm not going to keep much of the cone, I'm going to just lever that off quite low down and turn that on its side as well. So we've got our main components on there now. All right, so there's your roses with the buds. And then it's up to you really what you want to do to finish this off. So I quite like the idea of piping in using my purple buttercream, and I'm going to do those punch star flowers. So these are the ones where you just simply pressed or touch the surface of the cake with the piping tip and then squeeze, stop squeezing, come off, so it creates an area where we can put a center. And you want to have a look at see what you're doing here to make sure that you don't over pack the flowers in, but you give it just enough to create the interest and the nice design of a nice, you know, the nice design. So just punching, so squeeze the surface of the tip of the piping tip nozzle end is touching the surface. So we've got some nice purple flowers there. Just looking over the cake a little bit, I feel like I want to put one in there, although it might disappear behind something in a moment. If you wanted to, you could continue the whole idea of the punch flowers by using your star tip. This is the number 18 pink, and we can do some little punched flowers that are just tiny, just to finish off a little bit of a trail to make that look interesting. Sometimes these don't stick, in which case you might just want to put a little bit of piping gel underneath. So we've got some little pink flowers going on there. And then if I take my yellow, because I want to introduce some stamens, so I could just have, this is a number 2 piping tip, which is just a right tip. if we add on the little twisty part to secure, you can see this is where the couplers come into their own, because we're not having to create lots and lots of bags of the same color. So here we can just pipe little dots. Turntable is very useful for this. And then if you wanted to, you could go even one step further and pipe in some little dots into here. Or we can just simply finish this now with a little bit of a few leaves. So I've got my leaf 352 piping tip on my green now. Make sure your bag is nice and plump. I'm going to start off by creating some really nice big leaves behind the roses, and these are going to have a lot of texture like maybe roses would. Just change the direction of the bag a little bit when you're piping, so that they're not all facing the same way. And at this point, you're trying to disguise the blobs of green that you put on first of all. And as we come out to these smaller flowers, you can reduce the size of the leaf so that it doesn't look odd. And we need to make sure it's in proportion. Here we can go a little bit bigger, just tightening up my bag. Okay, we need some leaves in here. You can come up the side of the rose, one more in there maybe, and a couple more in. So it's really kind of what you want to do with this, to create some interest. Sometimes less is more, but we can do tiny, tiny little ones just to finish it off. And if you wanted to, you could do like a snail trail around the base of the cake, or if your cake is offset, then you could do a bit of type design on the side here as well. Just on the board, just here. Okay. Now, if you had wording to go on here, the only thing we haven't covered today is the fact that you've got some little designs in your worksheets, which are letters, happy birthday, there's outlines of cupcakes and things like that. And if you actually get a piece of greaseproof paper, you can transfer the design onto your piece of greaseproof paper, and using piping gel, which I'll show you in a second, you can outline just with a fine piping tip, maybe a number 2 or a 1. You can outline this with your piping gel, and then you can turn the paper over onto your cake, obviously before you've created your decoration. So this could have happy birthday on it. And then you just gently use a brush to wipe that outline of piping gel onto your cake. And because it's clear, you won't see it, but it gives you an outline to paint onto. And it does explain in the book how to do that. Piping gel, I'll just show you this here. It's not just Wilton that sell this. You can buy it from other, different brands. Clear piping gel, and we use this for exactly what I've explained, outlines. You can use it to pipe dewdrops onto flowers. You can pre-ice a cake with blue and then paint it on and it looks like water. You can use it for stained glass windows. It does last a long time, and yeah, it's quite a useful thing for sticking as well. So if I wanted a design on the side of my cake, then I could paint piping gel on here, and then if I've created sunflowers on greaseproof paper, for example, they can be stuck on, and it'll hold. It's quite a strong glue.